So if you've been following me around on socials, you know that Neovim is my favorite editor. But I gotta be honest, sometimes I reach for VSCode. That can be a situation where an extension exists in VSCode, but not in Neovim. That makes my life easier. Or when I'm just recording educational content, it's better to use a tool that students would use. So I'm not against using VSCode by any means. What I'm missing is just matching the same workflow I have in Neovim. I want to have it in VSCode. So in this video, I'm going to overwrite 30 commands in VSCode in order to make it work like Neovim. So let's dive in. So I'm going to split the commands in 3 categories: navigation, coding, and also for the file explorer. And yeah, we have 2 editors. On the right side is Neovim, Kitty with Neovim, and on the left side we have VSCode. In the key bindings.json, I have the empty JSON file because I want to start this from scratch. And the only thing that I've done in VSCode, come on now, there we go. The only thing that I've done in VSCode is to just install the Vim extension and enabled it. That's it. So let's start with the navigation key bindings. So what I like in Neovim and how I have it configured is, for example, let me just set it up here. There we go. For example, we have 4 different panes and I can navigate between them using Control, H and L. And of course, even if they were one on top of the other, if they were vertical, I can do the same with Control J and K. So I want to replicate this in VS Code. In order to do that, we're going to register a new key, which is going to be Control H. The command is going to be workbench .action navigate lefts. And I'm going to copy this whole block several times for the up, down, and right. Okay, there we go. So let's set up a few panes now. Here's app.tsx. I'm gonna put in git keep main.tsx at the bottom, and all right. So we're starting from this pane right here, and we're gonna do Control L for right, and you can see we're in the bottom right here. So Control K, now we're at the top. Control L again, now we're in the file tree. Okay, so this is looking good. What I want to do next is show a picker of all of the opened tabs, so I can jump between them. And here's how it looks like in Neovim, for example. Let's say I have styles open and index, and these are called buffers. But if I do space comma, I get this interesting view where I have access to all of them, you see? So I can do index.html and jump in that file. So let's replicate that in VS Code. We go to the key bindings. We're going to create a new key binding. It's going to be space comma, space as in leader, but we're not using the Neovim, or we're not using the Vim leader key in this case. It's just plain VS Code. So the command for that one is going to be workbench .action .show all editors. And we're also going to add a when case. When is basically a conditional when this command is going to be triggered. So we want to do vim.mode equals to normal, and we are in the editor. So editor text focus. We don't want to do this outside of it. For example, if we are here, maybe we will, but we'll see later. Okay, so command space. There we go. We see this top view that gives us a list of all of the open tabs. And if you didn't know, that's basically Command P that gives us all of the files. But if we prefix it with EDT, we actually filter out that list with only the files that are currently open in tabs. So what I like about it is I can do space, comma, styles, and I'm in the styles tab. This will work with other groups or other split panes where I can jump in that specific file, whatever or whichever pane it actually belongs to. So the next one I want to do is to show and hide the sidebar with Command E, because that's how I have it set up in Neovim, as you can see. So let's do that here as well. So it's going to be space E, and the command is going to be workbench action toggle sidebar visibility. And let's try to keep the same when condition. So space E, there we go. There's one case where, for example, I'm inside of the Explorer and I do space E to close it. Space will actually activate the file we're currently on. So that's not good. What we want to do, and this is because editor text focus is false in that case, so the command will not get executed. What we want to do is also add another condition to this. So either if we are in the editor or if we are outside of the editor but not focused on a text field. So that's like input, right? Input focus. There we go. Is either we are in the editor or like the text editor right here, the code editor, or if we're out but we're not focused on any inputs, right? So saving this, Command E, there we go. So it works here, but it also works if we are inside of the file. And I just remembered now, the previous command that we defined, the space, comma, it's not going to work because of the same reason. Space, comma, there we go. No action happens. So let's also add the same when, basically. So even if we are here, space, comma, it'll show us all the editors. Cool. Then we have a couple of more navigation commands, and that's the tabbing. I want to tab my way between these tabs, tab and shift tab. So let's bring another one where the key is going to be just tab. The command is going to be workbench.action next editor in group, because we only want to tab through the tabs within the same group, right? If we have splits and those splits have their own set of tabs, we don't want to jump between the splits. We want to stay within the split that we're currently focused in and only tab between those tabs. And the when is going to be a little different now. So, for example, we want to do this only when we are in normal mode, or, and there's a typo, mode, there we go, or we are in visual mode. So either these two modes, and the same condition as before, we're either in the editor or we're outside of the editor but not focused on any inputs. So this is going to be the tab. We also want to do a shift tab, and it's just going to be the previous editor in group. So save this and hit tab. There's a typo. And there's another typo. Editor text focus. Save this. There we go. Hitting tab will just jump between the tabs, and hitting shift tab is just going to go the other way. And let's also demonstrate that group thing. For example, if we have two more tabs, 2 tabs here and 3 tabs here, and if we're in the left group, we're going to tab through the only the 3 tabs. So that's the group. That's the group thing. All right, so those were the navigation key bindings. We're going to do the coding key bindings now. And these are really important. So let's add a comment here, coding, and start with the new set. So let's do a key, and we're missing a comma right there. And this is going to be, the first one is going to be moving lines up and down. right? So first, let me show you what I'm referring to. Holding Shift and going with J and K while having a selection like this allows me to move the whole selection line by line. So I want to achieve the same thing in VS Code, right? Shift and J. The command is going to be editor.action.move lines down action. And there's going to be a when only if we're not in insert mode and we are inside of the editor. If we're outside of the editor, there are no lines to be moved, so we're not going to move any lines. Cool, I'm going to do the same now for the Shift K, and it's just going to be move lines up. Okay, I'm going to save this, and now Shift K, there we go. I'm moving this whole block up and down. That's all there is to it. The next key binding I want to do is the hover, and it's still going to be Shift K. Hover is basically this. When we are here in the code and we hover on variable or a function or whatever it is, hitting Shift and K will give us this little window, which is literally the hover window in VS Code, right? If we're just hovering with our mouse on specific variables or functions, we see a little documentation and everything that we care about, right? So that's going to be a Shift K as well. It's going to be a different command, and it's going to be a different when, a different condition. So editor.action.show hover, and the condition for hover is going to be when the Vim mode is set to normal and we are within the editor. Okay, so let's try that now. Shift K, there's the hover. Shift K, there's the hover. Shift K, there's another hover, etc. All right, so that works, and it's really important to be able to use the hover without actually using the mouse, right? Because we don't want to use the mouse. That's the whole point of it. So let's move on. Next, we have code actions. Code actions are these little yellow light bulbs where you press on it, you have a bunch of actions. You want to inline the variable or convert it to a named function, etc., etc. So that's going to be, just copy this block here. The key, that's going to be space CA, and CA stands for code actions. And the command is going to be editor.action.codeAction with just a lowercase c. And the when is going to be, actually it's going to be the same. All right, let's test it out. Space CA, there we go. I'm going to move it to a new file or move it to a file. All right, Command CA, yeah, there we go. Yeah, if we do it on fetch data, we get more options. Cool. The next important key binding is renaming a variable, and that's going to be on CR. So editor action rename is the command, and it's going to be the same when. So CR, there we go. Fetch posts, beautiful. The next one is go to symbol, and that's going to be CS or code symbols. And the command is not on the editor, it's on the workbench. So workbench.action.go to symbol. Again, we're going to keep the same condition. All of these have the same condition because they're editing on top of the code file. So if we are in a file and we do space CS, we're going to see all of the symbols. And as I switch between these, you can see it's not a hover, it's like a selection in the background. So if I want to jump to the, I don't know, fetch data, there we go. Okay, moving on to the next one, we space BD, which stands for buffer delete. That's how I have it configured here in Neovim. For example, I have 3 buffers right now opened without the no name. That is like that's not a buffer, it's like an empty buffer, but we have these 3 files. So if I do command BD, we're closing that buffer, right? Now we have these 2. Let's do command BD again. As you can see, we're basically, now we have no buffers. Yeah, we're closing the buffers. And the buffer in this case, in the case of Visual Studio Code, is just going to be the tab. So let's just close a tab, right? The command for closing a tab is workbench.action.close active editor. Again, we're keeping the when. For example, let's say we're in the index.html and we want to close this tab, space BD, simply closes it. The next one is the quick open, and I have the quick open basically on space. So let me just type in the command workbench.action. Can't type today. Quick open. There we go. So space gives us basically command P, which is not bad, but in Neovim, space also gives me the file search. So I can easily jump between them and keep my workflow. The next 2 are going to be a go-to type of commands, and these are the go to the definition and also go to references. So let's copy this block and do GD for go to definition, and that would be editor.action reveal definition. Oh, and by the way, the space when is going to be a little different, because when we are here inside of the Explorer or outside of the editor.xbox and we want to do space, it's not going to be found, right? So we already know the drill. What we need to do is do or, not input focus, because yeah, space, there we go. So this is going to be the same. We need to be in Vim normal and we need to be inside of the editor. We don't really care for outside of the editor because there are no definitions outside of the editor. So let's test it out. We're here. Let's go below, for example, and point to the post, space GD. There we go. We are thrown where the post gets declared. What about posts? There we go. You can do the same thing without the space. For example, just GD. And that's built in the Vim extension. But I like to have pretty much all of my commands leading with a leader key. So that's why I wanted to redefine this one. So there's the definitions. Now we have the references. And it's going to be the GR. And it's the same editor action. Go to reference is the command. Yeah, it's references. It's plural. Okay, GR, and there we go, another typo where the T needs to be capital. My goodness, GR, there we go. Now we are toggling the references panel. Okay, the next one is going to be the find command, but in my case, it's like a live grep where you type in something and it gives you all of the occurrences of that string in all of the project files, which in the case of VSCode is just Command Shift F. But because I have it as SG or like search grep, I want to redefine it. There we go, space SG. And as I mentioned, this is just going to be opening the finder. So workbench.action.find in files. That's all. But in this case, since this is not going to be only an editor command, we also need to add the input focus, because we should be able to go to the find in files or like the search panel from the editor itself, from the Explorer itself. Yeah. Okay. SG. There we go. Let's go back. Go to the app. SG. Again. Here we are. We have just a couple more commands until the end of the coding ones. So the next one is going to be the space GG, which stands for go to Git, I guess. And this is going to open that version control panel in VS Code. So that's workbench.view.sourceControl module or whatever, I don't know. So, space GG, there we go. The only thing that I don't like about this is that it doesn't put the focus on the message, so I can immediately start typing in. I actually need to click with the mouse, maybe the enter, no. Yeah, if I type, I need to be inside of the actual inputs. And if you know how to do that, please let me know, because I couldn't figure it out. And the last one is going to be Control N, which basically is Command D in VS Code, but I have it set up as, let's see, app.tsx. I can point to any of the keywords. Control N is going to select it, and then hitting N will jump on the next occurrence. So Control N, the command is going to be editor.action.add selection to next find match. That is the name. And this is going to be a little bit more complicated. We want to do this when we are in normal mode, but also when we are in visual, because the first time we hit Control N, we are in normal mode, and then it selects the keyword or like whatever word it is under the cursor, and then it goes to a visual mode. We still want to keep going, so that's why we also want to include visual mode in the condition as well. So visual, and the same thing. Editor text focus. We're either in the editor or we're not focused or on any inputs. Okay. Okay, let's go to app.tsx now. So point to the const, Control N. There we go. And those were the code editing or coding keywords. And I realized maybe these two weren't. So I need to put them in navigation, but you get the drift. The last category is the Explorer category, and we want to like create files, copy, delete, move, etc. using the keyboard. So let's do that. I'm gonna add a comma, file, Explorer, and create a new key binding. And the first one we're going to cover is the R, which stands for rename. So the command is going to be just rename file, and the when, and these are going to be like separate types of conditions now. First, we want to be in the files Explorer focus, or like the files Explorer needs to have the focus right here. And then the folders view is visible. I have no idea what that means. I just copied it off the VS Code documentation, so bear with me. We don't want the Explorer resource is root, and we also don't want the Explorer resource read-only. And there's one more condition to this. We're not focused on any inputs. Okay, so this was a pretty big one. Files Explorer focus, folders view visible, not Explorer resources root, not Explorer resource read only, and not input focus. Okay, so I'm gonna save this, open the Explorer, and if I select index and hit R, we can rename this now. Beautiful. So that was the renaming. Let's also do the copy now. That's going to be C. The command for copy is files explorer.copy. And it's going to be the same when, okay? And we can't test copy without the paste, so I'm going to also do the paste here, just so we can test it out. Files explorer.paste. Okay, I'm going to copy index.html and paste it into the app folder. There we go. Aside from this, we also have the cut command. So let's do the cut, which is going to be on X. The command is going to be cut. So let's move the index to the assets. And you might notice when I hit X, it got like grayed out or like faded out. If I hit P, we're moving it into the assets folder now. Beautiful. And because we don't want two indexes now, and we need to delete this one. So let's create a command for that. P. And it's going to be delete file. So now this index HTML, I can just click D. Are you sure you want to delete? Yep, delete it. And that's it. So we can copy, cut, paste, delete, etc. But we also need a way to add new files, create new files, and also folders. So let's create the A, which is like lowercase a, which is going to be just a create file, and uppercase A is going to be create folder. The command for create file is explorer.new file, and let's immediately add the Shift A. It's going to be new folder. Okay, inside of the app, I'm going to create a new file .tsx, and then Shift A. Oh, we're not in the Explorer. Shift A new folder. There we go. So that also works. Let me delete the new stuff now. And we have the last two commands, which are the splits. And I want to show you these first. So in Neovim, I can point to a file in the file tree and just hit S, and it'll open it up in a split view, but like a horizontal split. But if I do Shift S or like capital S, it'll open it in a vertical split. So we're gonna do these two commands. The key is gonna be just lowercase s, and the command is, this is a straightforward explorer.open to sides. Okay, let's test it out. S on the tsconfig, and there we go. It opened it to the side. Let's also copy this one and do the Shift S, but this is going to be a little more complicated. Because VS Code supports open to sides and it's always horizontal, in order to do a vertical split and open to the vertical split, we have to define a macro. A macro is basically a key binding that runs multiple commands in a sequence, okay? And the command for creating macros is run commands. To define those commands, we need to do args. So we need to define the argument as an object, and then do commands, which is going to be an array of strings or commands. So the first command that we want to do is workbench. So before we dive into this, we are currently focused in a specific file in the Explorer. Okay, we're in that situation and we want to do Shift S. Okay, so what we want to do is workbench action split editor down, so it creates the vertical split. Okay, so let's save this, and there are like 3 commands. We're gonna do them one by one. So index.html, I'm going to do Shift S, and we can see that it created the split, but it's still the same file, key bindings. It didn't open the actual file, right? It's just split key bindings into 2 vertical splits. Okay, that's the first command. Then we want to open the file that we had selected, which is going to be explorer.open and pass focus. So that means open the file and move the focus to that file. Let's do that again. Index.html, Shift S, there we go. So now we can see that the index.html is at the bottom, but we can still see key bindings because the first thing we did is just split the key bindings, because that's where we were, right? We don't want to do that. So one last command to remove all of the other editors, except the currently active ones, is the workbench index.action.close other editors. So index.html, shift S, there we go. Index.html is at the bottom. These two are at the top. I'm happy with this. I can do S here. I can do from the top one, do S here, vertical split. So that's how I can build my layouts, right? And these were the actions, basically. We're actually missing one more because we defined a lot of the space commands, right? We lost the ability to open files through the Explorer. And if we hit enter, enter actually goes into renaming. So we want to reconfigure that command. So that's a bonus one, the 31st command. I'm just going to create a new one. It's going to be enter. We're going to lose the commands here, but the command is going to be explorer dot open and pass focus. This command, basically. So while we're here, I want to open the project JSON, not in a split, but just open it. If I just hit enter, we open the project JSON. Let's try tsconfig. And yeah, that's about it. Now I'm comfortable using VSCode, just as I would use Neovim, with all of these same keyboard shortcuts, with all of the same workflow. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, share it with your friends. Hit like, hit subscribe, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.